I was thinking, I have nowhere. I'm lost in Florida here. My mother doesn't really care for me anymore. I'm estranged from my father. I just felt like I wanted to just end it. I wanted to not be a burden. That was the thing always in my head with these things. Don't be a burden to people.
Hey there, my name is Sean, and this is Suicide Noted. On this podcast, I talk with suicide attempt survivors so that we can hear their stories. Every year around the world, millions of people try to take their own lives, and we almost never talk about it. And when we do talk about it, many of us, including me, are not very good at it. So, one of my goals with this podcast is to have more conversations, and hopefully better conversations with attempt survivors. Thank you to everybody who has participated in this podcast, whether you are a guest or a listener or both. Huge thanks. Now, if you're a suicide attempt survivor and you'd like to talk, please reach out. hello@suicidenoted.com, on Facebook or Twitter @suicidenoted. There is also a link in the show notes where you can leave us a recorded message. We have gotten several and I absolutely love them. So please send us a message if you're interested in talking on the podcast, or if you have a question or a comment or an idea, please reach out. There are also a couple of other links in the show notes, other ways you can support the podcast. We love support too. Now, we are talking about suicide on this podcast, as the title suggests, so please take that into account before or as you listen. But I do hope you listen, because there is so much to learn. Today, I am talking with Sean. Sean lives in New Jersey, and he is a suicide attempt survivor. Hey, Sean, what's going on?
So much.
Where are you, by the way? Where do you live?
I live in Hackettstown, New Jersey.
Oh, you're in New Jersey.
I did live in Greensboro and North Carolina for many years.
Did you like it down there?
I love it. I go back in a minute.
Well, hey, man, I'm glad we're connecting. I know you've been through a lot of late.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Sean, great name.
Yeah, you too, man.
You spell it the right way. I'm from New York. You're from New Jersey. You're joining me here to talk about difficult things. I'm curious if you want to share. You originally reached out. You wanted to share what you've gone through, including suicide attempt or attempts. Is it attempt or attempts?
I just mapped it out. I have 8 suicide attempts that I did throughout my life. So
okay. I usually ask, all right, let's start at the beginning. But with us, for some reason, I want to start now. So yeah. You had intentions to meet, and then we almost postponed, and you are able to meet. I'm just curious, what is going on with you in the last, whatever it might be, week or month or more, and then backtrack? It's like, well, what's going on? Yeah.
I have a registered nurse as a prescriber. I don't like psychiatrists. I was on lithium and fluvoxamine, and we wanted to get off the fluvoxamine, which was for my OCD. So we started weaning that, and we're going to get onto another new med out to replace that. And so I got off the fluvoxamine. I felt good. Those thoughts in my head started, hey, you might be able to handle this without the medicine, you know, which has always happened throughout my life. And I'm sure it happens with many other people. We started weaning off the lithium, which has always been my savior. It stopped the ideations 2 years ago. It just stopped them completely. Like, I was no longer having suicidal thoughts after like 20 something years. It was amazing. Yeah. And so I started thinking, oh, then let's get off the lithium. And she, I had told her this, and she was against it, but she was going to hang around, and she kept talking to my wife back and forth. It was last Thursday night. It's like everything just hit the fan. I thought it was good. I thought I was handling it. The thoughts started coming back for the first time in like 2 or 3 years. And my like I was jumping out of my skin, kind of. I couldn't sit still. I have this big townhouse development. I walked it like 8 times in one night, and it was just craziness. And unfortunately, I got back in touch with her, and I took some pills to help me just calm down a little bit. And then we started up, and right now I'm back. Like I'm back on the lithium full, and I'm on the new med. I'm feeling okay. I'm experiencing a lot of panic attacks here and there, but the thoughts that came back, they're gone again. It's like, it's unbelievable, like how it works.
Medication can help. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a fan. I've never been a fan. I'm like into Buddha and meditation, but like it works. Lithium is like, it's an amazing drug.
But it's not easy to get off of if that's the road you want to take.
I will never, ever do it again.
Let me ask you a question about that. You say you'll never do it again. And I'm not, my role here isn't to ever obviously tell anybody what to do.
Right.
But you would have probably said that a year ago, I'll never get off of it. It's working.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So isn't it interesting that like we don't actually know it? But here's a terrible comparison I'll make. I drink too much, I get hungover as fuck, and I'm like, I'm never doing that again. And what do I do the next week? So and the point being, this shit is tricky. This shit is just really tricky to navigate, man. I'm glad though that you're feeling a little better, or maybe more than a little. And your wife seems to be someone who's supportive, as I suppose spouses generally should be, which is cool. You're here. You had 8 attempts. I know when I ever ask, like, so where does the story start is a really tricky thing, right?
Sure.
Because we could go back to when you're 4 years old in nursery school when you got bullied, or maybe you were the bully. I don't know. Like where does it start? So one of the starting points I often sort of float is leading up to the first attempt, and however you want to frame that, I'll just be here and listen and ask some questions as we go along.
Sure. Well, I grew up, my dad and mom kind of separated like when I was in 7th grade. It was a bad divorce. I mean, it was like 10 years. And my sister and I were getting pulled every which way, you know how it happens. So I grew up in a household with my mother that was very, she made it sound like we were on our last legs. And that like we're on the street maybe tomorrow. And that was never the case. She was angry at my father and she wanted a lot of money. And so that changed things for me, because that feeling of insecurity really affected me. I don't know how it really felt. I don't think it hurt my sister that much, but me being the oldest, did a number on me. So I kind of lived that kind of life. And I did go into high school and I saw a psychiatrist, but my mother always went in first. So all that I ever talked with my psychiatrist was my father and how he saw another woman. And so we never got anything done. Basically. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you kind of see how that went. Mm-hmm. And I was experiencing depression at this time, and not bad, but it was beginning to build. So I went away to UNC Greensboro, and I had a great first year. Like I was 4-0, I was like playing basketball every day. It was fantastic. And I came back after on summer break just to spend a little time with my mom, and she had moved from New Jersey to Florida, Jupiter, Florida, got a place there. But when I was going over there, she told me on the phone, she's like, don't get used to it. I met a man on the plane and we're moving back to New Jersey and I'm getting married. So
hang on. Whoa. This is not your mom's story, but
yeah.
I met a man on a plane. I feel like that's the great title for a book. Just that title. I met a man on a plane.
Right. And
it covers the who, the what, and the where in only a few words.
Yeah.
So she went back to New Jersey?
She went to Jersey. But I spent the summer in Jupiter with her. And that's kind of where this mental illness thing came out, when my first attempt came out. I wasn't sure about college. I knew that the money was my father's. And I didn't want to waste his money. Because even though I was doing really well, I didn't know what field I wanted to go into. So I wanted to take a year off and kind of investigate things, get a job, and just kind of see what's out there. She didn't like that because she knew once I dropped out of school, the money stopped. And I think she was using some of the money for herself. So that happened. That blew up. My mom could be very physical, abusive sometimes, and definitely verbally. And we had a mess of a scene. I don't need to get into details because it's just like craziness. But I got back to the house and things had settled down with her, and she wasn't like, I felt safe in the house with her. But the suicidal thoughts came for the first time. First time.
You were thinking, I want out, or were you thinking details like I'm going to go into the woods and get a noose?
I was thinking I have nowhere. I'm lost in Florida here. My mother doesn't really care for me anymore. I'm estranged from my father. I just felt like I wanted to just end it. Like I wanted to not be a burden. That was the thing always in my head with these things. Don't be a burden to people.
Right.
And I went in the kitchen the bathroom, and I took a kitchen knife, and which wasn't easy to use. I never got through to a vein, but there was blood everywhere. She caught me. I guess she opened the door to see what I was doing, and called the paramedics, and that was my first attempt.
What happened with the paramedics?
She was kind of just yelling at me. They were kind. I ended up going to kind of like an offshoot of the hospital down there in Jupiter. It was very nice, like the nicest mental facility I ever saw in my life. An ex-NFL football player was one of the line duty guys in the place, and he took me under his wing, and he really he kind of saved me that night and preceding day.
And so what are you, about 19, 20 years old at that time?
I was 19. Yep.
And how old was your sister at that time?
She is 4 years younger. So she was like 15, and she wasn't there. She was in New Jersey with friends, like waiting for the wedding. So she didn't see any of this.
Now, I'm not here to pick on your mom because, if you hear the podcast, I tend to ask certain kinds of questions.
Sure.
One of the things I like to think about is, how do people respond? Now, your mom, granted, that was a moment of probably absolute terror to see your child bleeding all over the place. Whether it was in that moment or in the next days or weeks, understanding, angry, combination, something else?
So the next day, I was going into the psychiatrist, and I walked over there, and there was my mom in the room talking first again. I walked in. Meeting took 10 minutes. The doctor was against it, but my mom wanted me to get on a plane that day to make it back for the wedding the next day. So I was released. Got on a plane, sobbing, crying in coach. My mother looking at me, giving me dirty looks, like, knock it off, and made it back to New Jersey and went to the wedding.
You went to the wedding?
Yeah.
You went to your mom's wedding, her new husband, who she met on a plane.
Yep. Your
sister was there?
She was.
What happens? Your life just goes on? Or, I know it's not necessarily happily ever after. We're not talking here today, I don't think.
No, I cried the whole wedding, and everyone, I could hear, I was in the bathroom most of the wedding, and everybody, I could hear them outside. They were saying, my grandmother was saying, like, what's his problem and all this stuff. My sister, I think, knew what happened, and she was the only one who she came to the door, the stall, and she was trying to talk to me and just sat in the men's room with me for a while. Like you guys say in your podcast, like, my mother didn't inform anybody that I had been through this, like, totally life-changing trauma. It was like, yeah, exactly.
I understand, particularly at a wedding, while that might not be something you bring up, sure. But yes, that I'm sure it goes beyond that. We're not talking about that. Wow. Well, I'm glad. Your sister, huh? Only 15 years old. She's helping big brother out by just talking, hanging out, listening.
Yeah, she's pretty cool.
So I'm like invested in this now. Did you go back to Greensboro? Did you get a job? Did you travel the world? What did you do?
I went back to Greensboro, and I was an RA, resident assistant. I got that job, and so I was there, and I met some new friends. I kept my old friends, my basketball friends and everything, but I met a new guy, and he was a really good friend, and we got close. And so after our sophomore year, we got an apartment together for our junior year. So I did all right. Sophomore year, I did pretty good. Junior year, I went part-time because I wanted to start working. I was working at UPS down in Greensboro because they pay tuition and everything.
Oh, okay. By the way, Sean, so just to backtrack for a second, I know that these things present in all kinds of different ways. Some of the most quote unquote successful people in the world ideate, right?
Yeah.
But when you go back to UNC, you're not only a student, you're an RA. If you're an RA, that brings with a certain level of responsibility, of maybe organization, right? So your head has to kind of be screwed on mostly okay to do that, or you just probably couldn't have done it, right? Sure,
yeah. That's always been my savior, is my OCD, and kind of keeps me, focused a lot. I find if I have a stable environment, like the RA job, and knowing that I'm going to be there for both semesters and I'm good, my mother can't get me anywhere, I'm able to invest into my studies. Like, that was like a perfect world, a perfect storm.
Yeah, it so reminds me of and this is pretty obvious, but how important environment matters. A lot of things matter, but having that kind of somewhat stable, predictable environment.
Yeah,
All right. So you're a UPS guy. You're wearing the brown thing.
truck. I'm in the truck, the dirty truck.
All right. So you didn't have to wear the brown uniform?
No, I was you had a cut off shirt like you, and you were in the truck for like hours, and sweating.
UNC Greensboro, young guy living off campus. What happens next?
I dropped out after junior year. I wanted to get in-state tuition finally, and I wanted to become a resident because there was nowhere else for me to go. Things started happening. My dad came back in my life. He had reached out to me, so he was kind of reaching out, visiting me in my apartment because he's a teacher. So he was coming down in the summers. I was still working at UPS. Just trying to get that year of residency, working and having a driver's license. I eventually did, but unfortunately, the mental illness kind of creeped in. I was working like 3 jobs, and one of them was UPS, and I was falling asleep in class. I just had like a mental breakdown.
You did?
Yeah, it was. There was no suicide. It was just anger. It was just frustration after like that whole year. I worked so hard to become a resident, and my tuition was like $250 a semester instead of $5,000. And I was just so mad at myself.
Why? Because you didn't get it?
No, that I fell asleep in class and couldn't do the class anymore because I dropped out. I was like, I can't do it, and I was on my own. And
when you say mental illness kicked in, what do you mean? What is the mental illness?
Well, like I'm diagnosed as bipolar with OCD, and I know there's a lot of anxiety in me. And I think what happened is like depression set in. My OCD, that's when like my OCD is very mild now that I'm older. But like when I was that age, my OCD was crazy. I was checking doorknobs, having to check my tires 2 times a day, my car tires 2 times a day, making sure that they're exactly 35 pounds pressure, I mean, some really wild stuff. That was stopping me from succeeding in my classroom, doing the studies and then working on top of that. I mean, it's crazy, but I could not have my bank account under $5,000. Like, what kind of college student has $5,000 in their bank account back in the 90s? That's like absolutely crazy.
Right. By the way, just slight tangent, not really. And then I want to go back. Does it bother you when people sort of casually say, "Oh my God, I was acting so OCD," and they're not OCD?
It used to, but now it doesn't, because they really don't know. They're just like,
yeah,
they don't know what it's really like.
No. Oh my God, he's so manic. Is he? Is he manic? People, it's like, I get it. We play with words.
Sure.
All right. So you drop out. What happens, man? What happens after that?
I go into the Marines.
Ooh, wow.
The Marines. Yeah.
Why'd you go to the Marines?
I always had wanted to be in like the service, and
okay.
I saw the service as also helping with tuition. When I get out.
Marines, though, not the Army, the Marines.
Marines, yeah.
You got in?
I got in. I passed everything.
Marines.
Marines, yeah.
Were you a badass, or are you like? You have to be a badass to be a Marine, no?
No, I'm not a badass, but I was like, I mean, I don't mean to brag, but I was like in the best shape of my life,
I hope you were. You're a fucking Marine.
UPS, no joke. They get you ready for the Marines, right?
They don't even realize that's like a breeding ground or a feeding for, yeah. So that's a good tagline, like start with UPS, end in the Marines. UPS, where we make Marines. All right. Enough of my silliness. So how was the Marines? How was the Marines?
I got to the first day when I was ready to get on to go to Parris Island. And I called my recruiter, and I had been holding this inside for a long time, and he knew it. I had told him that I had lied when they asked me about, have you ever attempted suicide? Because that's a red flag. I think that was a red flag. Like,
yep,
there's a door. And he said to me, just don't worry, kind of just don't say, just, he didn't say that directly, but he gave me the look, right? The look. So I was freaking out. My anxiety was out. I could not let it go. And I told him this, and he was livid. I'll never forget the things he called me.
For being honest?
Yeah, for wanting to like say I can't go because I lied, He was very upset. And he said, "Don't ever like. I hope I never see you, in town or anything, that kind of thing."
Wait. Just curious, is it safe to say that this had less to do with him wanting the best for you and more because they have a quota they need to reach? Is that
Exactly? It was his quota.
okay? That's part. Well, that's the role he's in, and he's got to do his job. But okay, wow. Did you ever see him in town again?
No. Greensboro is pretty big, and
You were going to go into the Marines. Now you're not in the Marines.
no, I'm not. No.
And I want to back up for 1 second because I think I kind of led us astray. When you said that you broke down in college, did you have another attempt there?
No, the attempts didn't really occur in college. It was more just the OCD kind of like overwhelming me and just having that moment where a complete breakdown, like just throwing stuff in the room and just and then exhaustion because like you've been riding this train for a year and it's just too much.
Yeah.
But the next attempts, I wrote them down actually, are like right around the corner. And then as soon as the second one happens, it's like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, just like that. Yeah.
And so what happens after you leave the Marines office that day?
Yeah, I went back home just for a bit. And then I came back to North Carolina and I moved to Fayetteville.
Why?
I found a job as a chimney sweep. And this friend of mine, he had a house that he knew that was like $250 a month.
Okay.
Had no heat. Basically had nothing. It was just basically just a box kind of thing.
Right. So here's where my brain's going. And of course, I know why you originally reached out and I know where our conversation is going. But so for me, college, dropped out, almost a Marine, don't get in. Then you go to Fayetteville and you're sweeping chimneys. And there's no judgments really against Fayetteville or chimneys. I'm thinking, I don't like the way this sounds.
No, you're exactly right.
I don't like where this is going. I know where it's going, but still, okay, this is where something's happening.
Yeah, you're exactly right. At this point in my life, I was trying to reduce all my costs, and I was with my dad and I were in good shape, but I didn't want to take from him. I want to do this on my own, and I thought, okay, I'm going to get a cheap house, save money. These chimney sweep guys, these seem okay.
Mm-hmm.
Get started though. It's one of those cab trucks, there's a little cab and then all the equipment. And like every time we finished a chimney, we were celebrating with, a marijuana, and I'm not good with drugs. Drugs don't do my mental health very well. So I was sucking up marijuana for 8 hours and then getting up on these ginormous houses with like big chimneys and holding on for dear life. That just got old, and living in the house with no heat, I didn't reach out to my father. And that's when the suicide thoughts come in. I thought like, I'm better if I'm just off the earth,
Mm-hmm.
And I quit the chimney sweep guys, and I was still at the house, but I was freezing to death. I went to the store and I was so determined. I bought 2 6-packs of Corona. And then I bought these jumbo sleeping pills. Yeah, I came back. I downed every single pill in both bottles. I had 2 beers to do it. And that was like a 3-day hallucination, half out of it. I was seeing people from my past. Mm-hmm. I walked to Fayetteville Hospital to get help. And when I remember sitting in a chair, and when the woman said insurance, I got up and ran out. It was incredible. And there was throw up all over the house. How I survived it, I have no idea.
So you left the hospital because you don't have insurance?
I left the hospital, yeah, because I didn't have any insurance. So as soon as I heard her say that, because I was going for help. I was starting to come down from all the medicine, and I was like, I wanted help. I wanted just to be hospitalized. And she said insurance, and I just
So every once in a while, when I talk to people, I kind of break for a moment and I say, all right, even though everyone who listens to this podcast is probably already on board with these ideas, it's just worth me saying, shout out. We lose a lot of people because they don't have insurance.
Yeah, man.
So I have no solution to that. That's a fucking problem. All right, let's go on, please. Yeah. That's a fucking problem.
It really is. Yeah.
You don't have insurance and you wanted help.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though, when you're a young guy, young 20s or woman, but you're not, I think we tend to be especially resilient. I think that's just that age where you just can do anything.
Sure.
But you said after the second one happens, which was that attempt, then the rest come quickly. So despite being a young guy and again, good shape, not enough. That's not enough.
After I, came back to the house and the next day or two, I called up my dad crying and told him what happened. And he's like, just wait till you're really okay. Come back to New Jersey. Then I'll come down with you and we'll get a van and we'll just pack everything up. And he came down with me and he started crying when he got to the house. He saw the Fayetteville house.
Your dad cried?
Oh yeah, he cried.
Did he give you a hug?
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Wow. All right. I'm liking your dad right now.
He made mistakes. I understand why he made his mistakes. Now that we're older, we can talk about it.
Yeah.
And I didn't because, him and my mom's relationship was very difficult.
Right.
And he had to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
He lives right down the street from me now. So
no shit. So you went back up to Jersey that week?
We went down in 1.5 days. We went down, picked it up, went back. We didn't stop.
Well, and you've been in Jersey since?
I've been in Jersey since, yeah.
An underappreciated state.
I'm out in farmland and beautiful mountains, and people always think Newark. They're like, oh, Newark.
Right. Or like Patterson or some smelly orange. All right. So for the past whatever number of years, here's what I know. I know there are more attempts coming. I know you at some point got married.
Yeah.
And I know at some point you grew a beard. Those are the three things I know.
Yeah.
At this point, do you say to yourself, I need more or a different kind of help?
Yeah, I wasn't on medication yet. This is when the medication came in. My dad has OCD too, but nothing like what I experienced, and he doesn't experience depression. But he had a doctor in Morristown, New Jersey, that he hooked me up with when I came back, and that's when the medication journey began, and that's been a journey. I was basically on the wrong meds for 20 years because the guy who I was with, he thought I was like depression and then OCD, and that was it. Yeah. So those SRIs weren't doing anything for me. They were helping with the OCD a little bit, but they were missing the manic and the bipolarness, and they were missing the suicidal thoughts. Because the attempts got more and more and more and more, and he just kept putting me on SRIs. There was no change. It was very bizarre.
Maybe not a very good doctor.
Wasn't the best.
Maybe he wasn't very good at his job. I mean, some guys who sweep chimneys are great and some aren't.
Exactly.
And I don't know a lot about meds. If I'm not mistaken, and I'm obviously not a doctor, just making sure everyone knows that SSRIs are not typically good for bipolar. Am I right?
I don't think so. No, they're more for obsessive compulsive and violence, stuff like that. Yeah.
And when you say bipolar, how did it present in your life? Did you have highs and lows?
The highs, the manic, it can show itself sometimes, but the lows are what I primarily deal with the most of. That hits me the hardest.
Is that like in bed for 2 or 3 days?
Could be, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Just laying, maybe watching a movie or just nothing?
Nothing, just isolating yourself from people.
And then the thing that happens is, and if your experience is different, tell me, of course, you do that enough times. And even when you come out of it, and it probably feels nice to come out of it, you go outside, you take a walk, it's going to come again, probably. And so this pattern starts to happen. And this is kind of my own version of that, where you get older, you're like, oh, this isn't probably just going to change. It's going to happen again and again. And can I be okay with that? And I get why some people are like, I don't think I'm okay with that.
Right. COVID is a perfect example. I wasn't working. I was on disability for the first time in my life. My therapist recommended it. She said, you should be on disability. You're going from job to job and all that. That's a whole other story. But what the pattern I developed with COVID was I was sleeping all day. It was good. It was okay. But then it's every month, and then it's every 6 months. And you've got that pattern of just isolating and sleeping. And you're caught in a deep, dark depression. But the thing that just blows my mind is that for 2 years I did that, and never one suicidal thought because I was on lithium.
It's complicated stuff. When you say isolated, you're married. You live with your wife?
Yeah.
So are you isolating also from her, or when you say isolated, just you two hanging out?
Well, when they're gone, she teaches too. She's a teacher. So when she's gone and my girls are gone at the school, the day is just completely wasted. I'm in bed. I do come out whenever when they come home, and I try to interact, but it's not the experience that a normal a dad, would have with their kids. I still, when they're home, I kind of keep my distance and all that.
You have two girls?
Yeah, two girls.
So you have two daughters, a wife and two daughters. Your dad lives down the street.
Yeah.
Your sister around?
She's in Roselle, which is about like an hour and a half away.
And in the course of returning to Jersey until this moment, you were saying that you had a real battle for 2 decades with finding the right medication. And you had, I think 6 more attempts. Are they sort of every couple of years, or did you have a sort of especially bad year or two where most of those occurred?
Yeah, like I was living with my dad when I came back, to Jersey I lived with him about 8 years, but I went through a whole bunch of jobs. And during that time period, I was having difficulty with, self-esteem and, where am I going? And I don't have a college education. Thoughts were creeping in, and there were like 3 attempts that were pretty serious. Then once that was over, I got into, I became a tennis instructor for about 7 years, which was like my saving grace because I loved it. I was teaching tennis every day, outdoors. That's when things got really good. So the suicidal attempts stopped right then. That was like an 8-year period of grace,
And you attribute that a lot to the work you were doing.
Yeah, I had some nice friends that I was going out with after, work. We were going to like rock concerts. I'd never been to a rock concert. And so my social life was really good. Everything kind of was gelling. And I was still at my dad's, but we had a good relationship and things were going great. Those 3 suicide attempts, they were kind of done. And those 8 years were kind of nice, I was still on meds. I was still on, I think I was on, Zoloft at that time, I think. I didn't like it. It wasn't helping me, I didn't think. But I told my dad, hey, as long as he kind of wanted to say, hey, as long as you're living with me, you're going to be on something, Sean. You need to help yourself. And I was like, you're right. Hey, like 3 suicide attempts, what am I?
It's not a bad point he's making.
Right, exactly.
It seems pretty fair.
Yeah.
So that part of your life moving in a better direction.
Yeah, definitely.
Tennis. You're in Jersey, you're holding down the fort, you're going to rock concerts, you've got some friends. And I should have asked I don't want to get too granular, but if you're okay with sharing, Absolutely. Your 3rd attempt, are you using the same methods? And the reason I ask is this, I always wonder, all right, I did the pills thing, that didn't work. Or I did the cutting thing, that didn't work. I'm going to try something else.
Yeah, those 3 and 4 were similar to the other one with the pills, right? Unfortunately, my dad somehow, I didn't think he was going to be home both times, and he came home early. He got me and threw me in his car and drove me to the hospital. The one after that was the last of the attempts before the grace period. That was in the car with the CO2. Yeah.
In a garage type thing?
Yeah, in our garage with the muffler and stuff. How
did you get out of that?
He came home early again.
Wow.
And I think the paramedic or something, he said I did something wrong. Like he said, glad you messed up because this would have been it, Sean. I forgot what it was. It was maybe there was another window open on the other side or something like that. I was kind of in I was in crisis and I wasn't thinking right.
Sure. That makes sense. All right. Now, I don't know if you were going into your 30s or later, whatever happened. Something's happening after the good times because you wouldn't have framed it that way.
Right. Yeah, I met my wife. I was giving her and her friends tennis lessons.
Oh,
yeah. I actually had the hots for her friend, but it just didn't work out. And like my wife and I became good friends, and then it was so easy. It just kind of went on from there. That's usually happens, if it's the right thing, it goes easy.
You're doing so when you were doing well, and you had said earlier you had some self-esteem stuff. You were feeling good enough to be like, I could get a girl. I could go out with a girl. Girl's going to like me. Yeah. Not everybody feels that way. That's why I'm asking, I can imagine if you're going through a really hard time that you might not feel that way.
Right.
So you get the girl.
Yeah. She's a teacher. She put in the idea in my head, just go finish your degree. So I went over to East Stroudsburg, PA, which is not too far from us. And I got my teaching degree. So I taught tennis at nights and stuff like that. And then I went to class during the day, and it was great. It worked out perfect.
What did you get your degree in?
Elementary education.
Elementary, teaching kids. So did you get a job doing that?
Well, it's funny. Like I had met a lot of people during tennis, a lot of moms actually. moms that had sons or daughters that were on the spectrum or had Down syndrome. They were involved with a lot of groups, and there was this one mom who ran an advocacy agency. She offered me an interview when I graduated. So my first job was to go around the counties in Jersey and teach kids with IEPs to teach them their rights. You have a right to declare an IEP meeting whenever you want. Why do we have IEPs? Hey, and also teach them about like what's great about you, like and getting it up on the board and having focus groups and doing board games and Wheel of Fortune stuff. It's just a lot of craziness and fun.
That's very noble work.
It was a great job. Yeah, really, really. I learned a lot.
I bet.
Yeah.
I bet. There are still attempts coming though, Sean.
Yeah.
That's the thing about when I speak with people, I kind of know where we're going.
Okay.
Don't mean to go down that road. I mean, we could spend more time teaching stuff, but it is suicide noted, not teaching noted. So
I went on to a few other jobs, like just going through, trying to make a little more money, trying to get more established. Basically what happened is I was in the public schools finally, and I was a preschool disabilities teacher, which was really great. I did that for 4 years.
Wow.
And this is kind of where things kind of come back. I was really on a nice grace period, and I was still taking the medicine. They were still thinking of me as OCD and depression. I met a woman in the school. We became very good friends. It kind of became more than like a friendship. It never was physical. We never like had anything like that. It was more, they say it's like kind of like an emotional connection, and, texting of course was part of it. I tried to always take it back a little bit and say, we need to kind of be friends. Let's just stay friends.
Because you're married.
Yeah, because I'm married. Exactly. It was just a bad part of my life. I was loving the attention. It felt great. A real beautiful woman, saying things to you, and it feels good. It got to the point though, where I think I started getting off my meds because I did this frequently. I thought I could handle it, like I did this last time. And so the combination of being off the meds and then the guilt for a whole year, this relationship had been going on. I told my wife, and I came to her and I said, look, I need to tell you this. I understand what's going to happen. You might want a divorce, whatever you need. This is my fault. I did this. I apologize. She was upset. She had confronted the woman, of course, like on the phone. The woman she was really upset about it. She was angry at me. That day, I can remember the day. I felt like the world was over. My wife, I had nobody. She could take my kids, even though she would never do that to me. But everything just crumbled. I came home. I said goodbye to her, and I said, I'm going to leave. Okay. I did too much damage. And she's upset. Everybody's upset. I kissed the kids. I went out to Harrington, PA. It's like down Route 80. And I just started driving. And I saw this hotel and I stopped. I pulled off. I got a room, and I had all my, I think it was an Anafranil. So all my medication was in a bottle. My doctor made the mistake of giving me like this huge refill. It was ridiculous. I took them all. I called my wife real quick and I said, I love you.
She had any idea what was going on?
She knew what was going on, yeah.
Whoa, so hang on. Let's go back for a second. So, because she had known about you, you've shared with her about your other attempts.
Yeah, oh yeah, she was fully aware of my mental health, yeah.
So what does your wife say when her husband calls and says that, and it seems as if he's checking out?
She was hysterical. At that time when I made that call, I knew that the police were there. He was trying to talk to me. I didn't figure it out. I figured it out a few minutes later that they're probably tracing it.
Yeah.
And I had already taken the pills, and I could feel it. Like it was like fire running through my body.
So when you left the house, your wife already knew there was a major problem and called the police.
Yeah, she could just tell. I assume she could tell by my talk. And she was like, I think even she said, where are you going? I said, I'm just going to end this, Barb. It's my fault. I'm sorry. You don't deserve this. And I can't go back, and I'm just going to take care of it. And she knew what that meant.
Sure.
It ended up, I was on the toilet, and I was, it was coming out all at us, fire.
Painful, right?
Painful.
Yeah.
And
like your body's not happy.
It was bad. And like a SWAT team busted down the entire door.
All right. Now we're going down that road. Okay.
They threw me off the toilet with their batons and shields. And then one guy ran in. Thank goodness. He goes, get off of him. Get off of him. He goes, he's a good guy. Because he knew the police chief, I guess, in Hackettstown. He says, he's a decent guy. He's just going through some problems. Get off.
We know that police officers are not trained typically to understand any of this.
Right.
But it should be noted, if you're thinking about getting into law enforcement, some people do not need to be tackled or shackled or beaten with a baton.
It was tough.
It's just bizarre.
It was. I was in Hazleton for quite a while in a hospital, just getting it out of me. Like, I was seeing my dad at my bedside at night, and the nurse was telling me, he's not there, Sean. Nobody's here. Nobody came to visit you yet. My sister did. My sister did come out that night. She drove 4 hours.
Nobody came? Nobody else came?
No, just my sister.
All the while, because you've mentioned your dad some throughout the last part of our conversation. Is your mom in your life at this point? Is she aware of her son's challenges or struggles?
She unfortunately, it's almost 11 years. She passed away in her house in Arizona. It was like she drank herself to death. They found her, basically with vodka bottles everywhere. And I think she suffered from mental illness too.
So many people do that and they don't know it.
Yep.
Right. And does that so not to get weird here, but you had said this, you get older, you look back, and you were talking a little bit about a different perspective on your dad. And this isn't a loaded question at all.
Sure.
But does it change your perspective on your mom and how she dealt with you when you think back, like, maybe she was mentally ill, maybe she was dealing with addiction back then? Does that shape things at all or reframe things?
Like that, like the last couple months with all the stuff that was going on with my sister and me just talking and stuff, I have started to think like that. I'm sure she was dealing with the same level stuff I'm at.
Maybe
almost positive.
Yeah.
She just did it differently. She did it, medicating with alcohol.
It's not a justification, and I have no comment on her mothering, but you do what you can to cope.
Right.
And sometimes those things kill you, but you do what you can to get through the day or the moment. It's what we do. I think it's weird in a weird way, Sean. I think it's kind of weird not to do that. Just talking about it with a couple of friends. Like, we're just talking about how we look forward to that drink at the end of the night. Or maybe for me, it's more than one drink. Why? Well, because we feel a little bit better. We know that we're not helping our livers. We fucking know. We're not dumb. You do what you have to do.
Yeah.
Anyhow, all right. I digress. You're in the hospital in Hazleton. You obviously survive.
Yeah.
Did they send you to another kind of hospital?
Oh yeah, it was horrible. This is gonna get funny. It's not funny, but now it is funny. It was like an 8-story like mental health facility. It's like archaic, and it was really bad in there. The teaching union wanted to get involved, and they wanted to help me out with sending me somewhere, better. And I was like, okay. And they talked to my wife, and this guy was selling this place in Florida that was like, sober living houses.
Mm-hmm.
It was basically a sober living house situation, but he was saying it was for people with mental difficulties that are struggling and just got out of the hospital. I went down after Hazleton. My wife and my dad took me down to the airport, and I get down there and I get to the front desk, and right away I'm feeling something's not right because I see the people here and I'm noticing this is strictly a sober living place. There's no mental health stuff here.
Kind of a scam.
Yeah, it was a scam. And
because these are just, they make a lot of money, those places.
They sure do. So I said, I can't do this. And I walked this long highway in Tampa all the way back to a hotel that was like 10 miles down the road. Halfway, though, the guy had picked me up. He came in his truck and picked me up and said, let me get you to your hotel. I'm not supposed to. He was very nice. They called me in the morning, the boss who was making all the money. And she was like, you need to get back here. We're going to send it. So I got in a truck and I came back. I stayed there for like half a day. And it was all Alcoholics Anonymous. It was that kind of meetings. People were coming in and telling their personal stories about their struggles with alcohol. I was like, when is the mental health stuff going to come in? I'm OCD. I'm depression. I'm suicide attempts. And it never came. So I asked the head lady, came in like a sweet Mercedes. She's got gold all over her.
Oh, yeah, she does. Yeah, that was only one of her cars.
Yeah, she had bling. And she sat in the treatment room and she was so angry at me. I've never had a woman yell that much at me in my life.
You know who that reminds me of?
Yeah.
The guy who recruited you in the Marines.
Yeah, exactly. She was
You're
fun.
not doing what you need to be doing. And when you don't do that, I don't make money or I don't get a raise or I don't get a promotion, whatever it is.
Yeah,
Fuck
that's exactly right. Yeah,
that.
she kicked me
All
out.
right, Sean, when you write your book, I want you to make that connection. You don't have to give me credit. Go.
No, I will. It's good. It's great. She did kick me out of the meeting. She said, get the hell out of here. And don't, and she said to any staff, don't give him a ride to the airport.
Yeah, and clearly after you attempt suicide and you're in a hospital, you go somewhere. That's how you want to be treated. That's exactly what you needed,
Right.
I'm sure, in your life. That's good. That's responsible, ethical treatment right there. Well done. Whatever you're called in Florida.
Yeah. So that was it. So someone, again, a nice guy, snuck up behind me on the highway. He's like, "Hey, Sean," and he was from the place, and he's like, "Get in quick."
Yeah.
Thanks,
You gotta be quiet. It's on the lam. You got shh. Don't tell anybody. Like you have to do this in secrecy. What's Jesus?
Exactly. So yeah, that was
What year was that?
that wasn't too long ago. That was 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
4 or 5 years ago.
I know that you, at some point after then, stopped teaching elementary school.
Yeah. I had there was an incident with stabbing my arm, opening it up. And I went through a couple other, after Harrington, I had my worst one ever. I had taken my medication, of course, downed it all. And this was stuff that you don't want to overdose on. And I ended up getting to the hospital and I was seizing. They couldn't stop me from seizing. My sister, I don't know where she came out of because she lives far away. She came into the hospital and she saved my life. She grabbed the director of nursing, and she was just like, "You're gonna do this." She's a registered nurse, so she's like, "You're gonna do this for my brother. You're gonna give him this stuff, and you're gonna stop him from seizing, and you're gonna save his life. Do you understand?" And they're like, "Yes, okay, sure." And it stopped, man. And then they had to intubate me for a week. I was unconscious for a week, and that was the worst. I could have died.
And by this point, your daughters are born.
My daughters, thank goodness, didn't see it.
So they're like pretty young at the time.
They were like 6 and 2.
So one of them was around for Hazleton in Florida.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
During that time, it was always daddy was sick. He's just not himself.
Mm-hmm.
But now my oldest is 11, and like this last one, she knew exactly what was going on. I told her like when I got better a couple of days ago, I explained to her what happened. And I said, "This is your dad. You know the history kind of. I didn't take my meds, and I'm sorry. I apologize." And I explained how I was feeling. And I said, "If you ever feel like this," because I always do that with her. I'm like, "How are you feeling today?" Because I get nervous, being a dad.
Yeah. Well, there's genetics, right?
Yeah.
But it is telling to some degree. I think when you go through stuff, you then can, I think, sometimes engage with people in a newer or different or maybe even more loving way because you know what it feels like. You know what you needed.
Yeah.
You didn't need somebody to yell at you. You didn't need somebody to kick you out. You needed somebody to say, like, how are you feeling? What's going on? No?
Right.
Isn't that pretty basic? Am I weird to think why is that so hard?
I don't know, but it's exactly what's needed. It can really solve a lot of problems with that.
I'm thinking about how we talk to young kids, and without doing it in that sort of super weird voice, we're still kind of like that. We just need someone to be like, "Are you okay? How are you feeling? Tell me what's going on." We do that to some degree, not everybody. With like children, I would hope. We stop doing it.
Yeah, I mean, when I think back on my childhood, like how many times did my mother really come up to me or my dad say, "Hey, are you feeling all right, buddy?"
Yeah.
All right.
And then hang on and actually
Right.
spend some time with you, regardless of how you answer, not just sort of right. I mean, so now your kids are a little older. How'd your daughter respond to that when she learned of that?
I could tell they were upset. They always send me pictures when I was in the hospital of them, which is really cool. And I think I did a phone call with my oldest a couple times. I'm always very scared that will I ever know how much that it affected them? That bothers me sometimes. I hate myself for that. but I couldn't. It's me, it's the way I am. I don't know if I could avoid it. This stuff happens, it's an illness. It's not like it's not going to go away.
Right. Probably not. I guess it makes total sense that you would be scared or even terrified that you would pass that on. My brain, for some reason, went to, I'm sure you passed on some really cool shit too.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
That, I mean, we probably don't think about as often but I get sense because fear is a different kind of thing than.
Yeah.
So all this while you're struggling, not maybe every moment, but it's not an easy road. It doesn't sound like. I've had 2 hospital stays, both less than a week. And it felt like everything in my world changed. And we're not comparing here. That's not a thing I like to do ever. But you've had more of those. You've had several attempts. It's like battling all this shit, medication stuff. Your wife's there, though. She's there. She stays till death do us part.
she's unreal. Yeah. She's unreal.
Met her on a tennis court.
Tennis court.
Didn't even like her at first. You liked her friend.
We joke about that. Yeah.
Here she is. Your sister helps. Sounds like that's cool.
Yeah.
Your sister got into like, I'm not fucking around mode.
That's what my wife.
Your little sister. Yeah. The same one who was 15 years old at the wedding.
Yeah.
She's like, no, this is how we're doing things. And they were like, yes.
Yeah. She was like, Barb said, Sean, you would have, it's like out of a movie, man. Like it was out of a movie. She came in there and just was like, this is what we're going to do. And do you have a problem kind of thing? And the lady was like, huh? It was like, she really took charge. Impressive.
How close did you come to attempting in the last couple of weeks when you went through that thing?
It was so in my head. The first night I think it was like last Thursday, I was begging my wife to just call the paramedics. I need something. I can't live like this. I'll never make it through the night because I was jumping out of my skin. And
is there any other way to explain that? Because I think a lot of people will never understand what that might feel like.
It's like your body's going like 1,000 miles an hour, but you can't keep up with it. And it's just, that's I guess that's the way to explain it. You're not in any shape to keep up with it. And you're just like, you're standing there and it's going everywhere, which way, your head, your thoughts, and you just want out, out right now. And the thoughts of ending it, so many ways just were going through my head, but I honestly kept, and I made sure I remember this. I kept looking at my girls in my head the entire time. Anytime I got a thought, I was throwing my girls in there. And then I'd go for a walk and I'd walk 2 miles and come back. And as soon as I stopped walking, it was the same confrontation with my wife. Her and I were there in the hallway. I'm like, I can't do this, Barb. I need to go to the hospital. Sean, she's like, you just need to calm down. Because if I went to the hospital, they wouldn't have done anything for me. I probably would have been tased at the hospital because, I couldn't, because when you go through the process, you probably know this, is that everything takes so long.
Yep.
You're sitting for 2 hours to get a room. Mm-hmm. I mean, they would have tased me and knocked me out, and I don't think I want that though.
Sedative might have been nice.
That's
some Valium wouldn't have sucked. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm just not going to speak for me. My doctor told me to get off that shit. What the hell was it? The Valium kinds of drugs, but I got to tell you, I really like those.
Really?
Yeah, I really just feel good on those. But I think a lot of people do. How'd you end up finding the podcast? Was that before all that?
Yeah, right before. It was I think a couple of weeks. I'm a podcast guy. I love podcasts. I think I did put suicide because I was tired of the normal podcast for mental health. A doctor goes on and like jibber jabber.
Sure.
You're not getting anything really good. There's nobody that's on there that's like, man, I just had this thing that happened kind of thing.
Right.
I saw yours and I was like, I played the first episode and I was like, this is incredible.
Really? Oh, I appreciate hearing that. Yeah. I don't ask people because I want my ego stroked. I ask because I'm just genuinely curious, because I think the only way to find it is to put that word in.
Right.
That one word. There's no other word. I'm always intrigued by how people sort of come to it. Yeah. And obviously, I'm sure some people find it and then it's not their thing or they don't reach out. So the people I end up talking to for the podcast obviously had something that connected with them. Yeah. So you listen to it and you're like, all right, I'm gonna reach out.
Yeah, I did. After the first one, I saw that you had said in part of the podcast you can, if you want to be on the show, or I was like, no, this is it. I said, it wasn't so much. I mean, I guess a little bit was for me because I really wanted to get my story out because not many people have heard my story.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of refreshing just to let it out. And I thought this would be kind of cool. And then the other thing is like, I just think people need to hear people like us.
100%. Obviously, you're talking to the guy who made the damn podcast, but just that, even if it's just someone listening to Sean, you, Sean, not me, Sean, that alone is a positive. That alone is like, all right, I'm not the only one. To know it conceptually is not the same thing. No, I know there are other people, not enough. I hear it. You had said you wanted to get your story out. What else do you want to share about that story that we may not have touched on?
If anybody's out, I'm sure, people out there listening, and it's so important to really have people around you. And I didn't always have people around me. And this time is like probably like the first time that I really reached out to 3 or 4 people, not just friends. I mean, like professionals, my nurse, RN, prescriber. It saved me. It really did. It made a difference. So it's just talking to 3 or 4 people and them knowing that you're in crisis and that you're fighting and they're there for you, whether it's to prescribe another pill or whatever. It helps so much. It really does. Don't be alone.
Don't be alone. And man, but it's tough, because we do reach out sometimes and people act weird.
Yeah.
Or they say stupid shit or they do what they do in the hospital sometimes. So I am in 100% agreement. I just wish people, I don't know what my point is. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm glad that you have a few people, or at least a few people in your life who can support you in that way.
Yeah.
How many people in the world know about all of your attempts?
3 people: my wife, father, and sister, and you.
Yeah.
4.
Okay.
Cool.
I'm in this weird category for people where sometimes I'm in this short list. Yeah. How many people outside, let's say outside of medical professionals, people like friends or family, do you have to really talk to when things are really not good, or even just not a particularly good day? It doesn't mean that you're necessarily ideating, that kind of stuff. Shitty day, tough moment.
It's really the only people I can talk to are my wife, pretty much. I do have a friend from Greensboro. She was a UNCG girls basketball star.
Wow.
Yeah, she's great. She's a good ball player. But she's been a kind friend all these years. And we kind of reconnected through the years. And I can reach out to her when I'm having a bad day. And I can get a text back with some kind of friendship poem or something like that, or, thinking of you. So that's a nice thing.
Are there any, we may have touched on this already without me explicitly asking, are there any specific myths around any of this that you would like to dispel?
I just think that it has in the general population, I think if someone kind of gets a stigma on them, if they have attempted, like, oh, he attempted suicide. It's still around. I mean, it's decades. I mean, you think we would have grown out of that. It's a mental illness. It's like cancer. That's the thing with me, is that mental illness doesn't get its props. I always tell my wife, I say, sweetheart, if I had cancer, which is a horrible disease, probably the whole neighborhood would bring casseroles, desserts, and say, oh, we're thinking of you guys. But all these people in the neighborhood, most of them, they know that I have some type of mental illness. They don't know about my attempts, but they don't come around with casseroles. They don't come around and offer like, hey, is Sean okay? It's just, I think it really stinks that mental illness doesn't get the level of attention from people, because I think that would make it really a lot better for a lot of people. It might help them more, if that makes sense.
I don't think might. It's more than might. This is a tough one, but why do you think that is, that people treat it quite differently?
It has such a stigma, and all the wrong things through the centuries we did with it. I think it still hasn't grown out of that. I think some people think that people with mental illness are somehow not worthy.
The other question I have about that is, why do you think it's casseroles that people tend to bring if they do come around? Why? Who the fuck likes casseroles anyway? Why don't you bring something I like? Why are you bringing me a casserole? I appreciate the intention. There ain't nothing about me that's going to eat a casserole. What are you doing? Let's sure come on in and have some coffee. Let's talk. All right. The question, this is actually a little sensitive just because of what you've gone through the last few weeks, but what's the likelihood that you're going to have a suicide attempt number 9?
I honestly, I know we all say this, and I've said it. I don't see it happening in the real near future. I just don't. I got lithium back. I have this new drug that I'm trying. I'm feeling the effects already. I got my support system solid, and I'm actually I'm getting off of disability, and I'm going into. I have a lot of job interviews, and one of them is working with people out of the hospital, out of a mental. When they go in there for a mental illness, they come out of the hospital. They need help with post-secondary education. They need help with just getting just a job, some type of job. And I'm in the job I'm really hoping I get, because that would be a great way to really make a difference,
100%. And we absolutely need that. We need a lot of things, but that go-between is so big, because people get let out. They go right back to what they had often. What do you think's going to happen?
Right.
What do you think's going to happen? It might take a month or a year or even more. Come on. So yeah, that's awesome, man. And you seem like, well, given your disposition, which I only know you for an hour, but what you've gone through, man, you'll probably fucking crush it in that role.
I hope so. Yeah, that'd be nice.
Isn't it cool that I can just curse because it's my podcast?
It's very cool.
We can curse. I mean, I don't need to go out of my way to curse, but do whatever we want. Wow, man. Well, we would have talked anyway at some point, but I'm glad that we are able to connect today. What else did I leave out? What's a question? Maybe a question I didn't ask, or anything else you want to add?
We covered a lot. I didn't expect it. I think it was pretty great. Thank you so much for getting all that. Let me speak all that.
I love it, man. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, dude. Good name, Sean in New Jersey. Yeah, I hope you get one of those jobs that you like, man. I know for me, it's tricky. I spend a lot of time at home.
Yeah,
and that can be hard. And I'm single, so it can be challenging, isolate, right?
Yeah.
Thanks, dude.
All right, Sean. Thank you, man.
All right. I hope we'll talk soon, man. Have a good day.
Absolutely.
All right. Be well. Bye. As always, thanks so much for listening and all of your support, and special thanks to Sean. Great name and a great spelling. Up in New Jersey. Thanks, Sean. If you are a suicide attempt survivor and you'd like to talk, please reach out. hello@suicidenoted.com, on Facebook or Twitter @suicidenoted, and you can follow the link in the show notes if you'd like to leave us a recorded message. Any of those ways are wonderful, and we want to talk with you if you want to talk about anything. Maybe you want to be a guest on the show. Maybe you want to leave a comment, have a question. We want to hear it. So please do not be shy. And that is all for episode number 119. Stay strong. Do the best you can. I'll talk to you soon.